Hey everyone, my name is Kretz and this is a review of the new product of a FREEWELL company which creates filters for cameras and filter sets and packs. And today we are reviewing a new pack which is called K2. It's got some new technologies and some new types of filters, so we're going to be looking deep inside of it. And to start with, I'll just give you two disclaimers, very important in my opinion, but on top of it, just not to waste time, I will show you the real unboxing of this filter set, which I did at my studio, which is not far from post office. So I show you how I grabbed the whole package and how it looks unboxing and, opening and showing you what's inside of it. So while I'm telling you a little bit of a story, you just please watch this unboxing video on my B-roll. So what are the two disclaimers? First of all, of course, it's a sponsored content. The company sent me the product and they presented it to me, for which I'm really grateful, but this is not a paid review. No money changed hands and I wasn't told a single word on what to say in my review or what not to say. And the company did not have an opportunity to review this video before it was published. So this is a totally independent review, and I'll tell you all the advantages and all the flaws of this product. So no biased opinion, but many thanks to the company for presenting this product for a review. And second, my history with this company actually started about a year ago when they sent me an email and asked if I could do a review of the K1 filters pack, the previous iteration of this set. And of course I agreed and it was a nice experience. And why I'm telling you this, it's that because it has this review has much in common and a lot to do with the first one, because in this particular video we're not going to be diving deep into VNDs and CPLs, which are variable ND filters, neutral density filters, and circular polarizing filters. Because this topic I thoroughly and in many details explained and taught you in my previous video in the review of K1 set. I've told you why do you need these filters, what they do, how to apply them, what are the quirks using them, and I gave you the examples of video samples, photo samples, and different applications of those filters. So VNDs and CPLs we are not going to be reviewing in details in this video, but instead of it we're going to be concentrating on what this new K2 system differs from the K1 package, so the new technologies, a new filter system. And of course we're going to be looking into the new filters themselves. I received some new filters that were not in the previous package, so I'll show you the examples and how they work later in the video. So please, it's probably be much better if you stop watching this video right now and go watch my first initial review, because you'll get an idea what these filters do and how to use them and what's the overall quality and specifications of work of FREEWELL filters sets. And now overall the quality of the new product is perfectly the same as a previous set, so it's basically very good, just wonderful packing with precise printing and high quality carton, so even the package is very high quality. And of course the contents, the filters, their frames, everything is made of very nice materials, and filters themselves have metal frames, they are beautiful. And of course company claims that the glass of which the filters is made are extremely scratch and stain resistant, so it's a very high quality. And I told you in my previous review and I repeat here, when you just touch this product, when you take it in your hands, you receive the feeling that this is a really very high quality product. Now what's in the box? Well, obviously it's the base frame, the new system, kind of like the base frame on top of which you add different parts, and it is made of plastic and metal, and it has both caps, so the regular magnet cap on the front, just like in the previous iteration of the set, and the plastic cap on behind the filter system when you're not using it on your lens. Then we got stepping rings from 67 through 72 and 77 to 82 millimeters. And of course our filters, the VND base, the ND filter 1 to 5 stops of light reduction, and if you turn it around you get the CPL filter, and the second one 6 to 9 stop of ND with the CPL on the other side, of course. And these are the same basic filters that were in the previous set, and now what are additional filters that we get here, and that's a new technology in these filters, is the drop-in or slide-in filters. And I received 3 of new filters, one of which is soft gradient, neutral density filter with 3 stops of light reduction, the K2 diffusion snow mist 1/8. So it's diffusion filter, and the Cinemorphic gold streak filter, which should be nice, you know, for shooting kind of like cinematic footage. Now the whole system actually has its own packages, and just as previously, the main filter system has its own carry case or a box or a big firm pouch, whatever you call it. It's the same beautiful leather, or probably leather replacement. It's of fantastic quality. Everything is sewed very carefully. It's got a little metal loop, just as previous, just to carry it wherever you want, and the carabine is included in the package, so you can, you know, strap it on something. And it's interesting that it looks pretty much the same as the previous iteration. Here's the K1 filter set here, but the colors are different. The original one was with gray body and the brown top or cap, and this is quite vice versa. It's the brown body with the more like a black grayish you know, opening part. But overall it's the same system. It's the box with a little bit of, you know, a tip here which you pull, and it's kind of like a stepping shelves here with all your filters, the filter system itself, and the stepping rings inside. So it's all inside one box. But for the drop-in or slide-in, whatever you call them, filters, we have a separate pouches. Here they are. They are of course of the same color as the main carry case. But these do not fit this box, or well, you can try it and fit them in there, but actually they come with separate pouches, and they are the same, beautiful. You open and here they are. But what's a little bit of disappointing is that there are no imprinting on each and every of them, considering that this is a kind of like a separate product with its separate package, a separate box. I think the company should just imprint the type of filter right on the pouch. Obviously it's much more you know, less expensive to produce the same pouches and just put different filters in them. But for such a, you know, high-class, high-ranking company, I think it would be more reputable to, you know, name the separate pouches for separate filters. So if you have a real stack of them, and the company actually produces a lot of filters, so if you have a stack of them, it's much easier to look for them and not to confuse the different filters. But there is a way around it, of which the company might probably have thought. And that's on the opposite of this pouch. There's this little bit of place where you can put a little bit of a paper or something to stick it inside, and probably, you know, write down the name of the filter by your hand and just stick it in here. So there's a place to name your filter, but I think it would be much more convenient if the pouches were named by themselves. And overall, I much more prefer the idea of carrying all your eggs in one basket, you know. So if each and every filter could fit the one box, it would be more preferable to me, like it was with the previous iteration, but it was much smaller, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there are, of course, 2 points. Well, probably the filters might be in great quantity. The company produces a lot of filters and you cannot obviously carry all of them in one box because no one knows how many filters you have and how many filters you want in your box. So obviously they cannot all fit in one box. You cannot invent such a box, for indefinite amount of filters. And the second obvious spot is that the carry case is bigger than the previous one. And of course, if you want to add more filters to it and, to include it all in one box, it's gonna be even bigger and even heavier, which might not be preferable. So the separate pouches are just fine, I believe. And just as well, the main filters are rounded, they are circular, and the drop-ins are kind of like rectangular or square filters, so it must be just not so reasonable to have them all in one box, so perfectly fine. And now let's compare the sizes. Let's put aside our drop-in filters and get the K1 and K2. You see the difference, and the K2 is obviously much bigger and significantly heavier than the previous one, and that is because the system itself, actually the technology changed a little bit, and I'll show it to you later, but it is still rather compact. This is very compact and this is rather compact. And what I mean by that if you're a one-man army like me, like I do my YouTube channel just by myself, of course the more compact I am, the better it is, so I like the K1 package. But if you are just a little bit bigger, you have an assistant, you have a partner, or if you're a big production company, this is no way it's going to be a problem. This is not a huge box. Yes, it is significantly bigger than the previous iteration, but it's not huge whatsoever. So if you have a serious production with camera operator, with some assistants, it is no problem, but just be aware it is bigger and heavier. And it is bigger by the reason, and the reason is the whole system, how it looks and what it does. And previously this system is of this size because I've ordered, when the company proposed it to me, I ordered the 77 millimeters filter thread package, because most of my most used lenses are 77 millimeters. But the new system has the new idea. All the filters are actually very, very big themselves, and they are actually bigger than the thread themselves. So there's the system that proposes, the frame for carrying it and a lot of stepping rings. And this package includes, as I've told you, from 67 to 82 millimeters stepping rings, but even 82 is not big enough for this filter, meaning that this huge of a filter will prevent most of vignetting and maybe some other flaws that could go with the, small filters and small systems on top of your lens. So the whole idea was to create this kind of a frame to use it on the different filter threads lenses. So as I'm telling you again, from 67, 72, 77 and 82 millimeters, with all these filter thread sizes, you can use this system very easily, because you don't have to have different filters and different systems. They all fit all together in one system. And how's that? And that is because this frame has a, this is the cap. We'll take it off. I'll show you it on a B-roll. We're taking off the back cap and we'll immediately see inside the base VND. The same idea was in the previous iteration. We have the base VND filter inside of it and the regular magnetic filter on top of it, which I've told you which filters are included in the package, and the magnetic cap on top of the filter. But we have these one of the key points of this new filter system is that it is used with the stepping rings, and because it is easily attachable and detachable. Not only magnetic filters themselves as previously, but the whole system, except those rings, actually easily attaches and detaches to the lenses. So you can use different rings with different lenses with different diameters and still quickly switch the filter from one lens to another. due to the new, so to say, clamping system. Now, how that works, you use your stepping rings and you screw them on your lens just as previously, just as a regular any type of filter or stepping ring. But on top of that, you actually clamp this whole system, which includes the filters, but this frame is just clamped on the stepping ring, which is already on your lens. And so if you have different rings on different lenses, you just unclamp this system and clamp it to another lens with the already screwed on stepping ring. And you do that with the two buttons on the side, so it is already clamped quite securely. It will not fall off by itself, so it is secured by the buttons. If you do not push the buttons, you will not attach or detach the filter system from the stepping ring, or even you cannot put inside or take out the back cap without pushing these buttons. So it's a secure system, but that is not all. When you put on the system with these buttons, it still can rotate. The whole system rotates on the stepping ring. And why do you need it, and how to avoid it if you need not to rotate your system? Well, first, there's advantages to it, because of course you can rotate it to correct your horizon, especially that there is a bubble level, classical bubble level here on top of the filter system itself. You don't have to need a separate bubble level because you already have it in your filter system. So while rotating it, you can, even your bubble in the level, and so get the perfectly straight horizon in your shoots. But if you need a vertical shooting, anyway, say for TikTok or Instagram stories or whatever, if you need vertical, then of course you can rotate your filter just as well. Not only rotate your camera, but rotate your filter and again correct the horizon with the bubble level. But even if that's not enough, okay, you can use these on different angles to the horizon, not the straight horizon, but you can have some inclination of the filter. With the filters that suppose that, say gradient filter, you can really rotate it to whatever degree you'd like, and the gradient will have its angle too. So you can even use this rotation for some artistic purposes, to have some special effects, some angled filters and some angled looks. But if you want your horizon straight and you don't want to mess up with the horizon and accidentally rotate the filter system, there are two screws on the sides which actually press on the filters inside of it, on the stepping rings inside of the filters when it's on the lens, and it fixes it. It actually screws it, screws it down with these screws, and it's kept rather securely. But that is why I'm gonna, claim a little bit and make some suggestion to the company. Actually, these screws are metal and the stepping rings are metal, and so if they are flat at the point of contact, even if you screw them very, very tightly, there is still a chance it would accidentally slide and rotate, because metal to metal prone to be sliding. So sometimes, no matter how tightly I screw this, it actually can sometimes be screwed, so to say. And sometimes it rotated even when I did not want it to. And how to fight that, just like it is done on some lenses with the tripod mounts. I think it would be better to have some little bit of gaps, dotted gaps every 90 degree, or even maybe even 45 degree, so that these screws actually went into gaps, and when tightened down, they could not be rotated whatsoever. So you can't tighten these screws and try to fix the filter on the horizon, but it's not 100% certainty, because it still can rotate, and I pretty much hope the company would improve on this point. But even that is not all that there is to this filter system. There are some kind of arcs on top and bottom of the filter, and when you put them a little bit aside, there is a slide, some room for the slide in or drop in filters. So you can actually have a stack of 3 filters. There's the base filter, then you can drop in the filter, and there is on top of it there is a magnetic filter. And so the drop in or slide in filter fits the slot right between the outer magnetic filter and the inner base filter. And it is slided really quite toughly, and it is very, very secure. It will not fall out by itself, and it will not adjust up or down by itself if not only you bump it into something. So it's not gonna get anywhere. It's very, very tightly and securely held in place. But as well, you can easily pull it out or pull it deeply in if it's a gradual filter, so you will not lose the position of your slide in filter. And the 2 of the filters that I have here, the gold streak and the mist, you can slide them in all the way to the hard stop. And with the gradient filter, of course, we can have a gradient, so slide it a little bit deeper or a little bit up. And it's kept securely, and so the whole system is fantastically thought out, and it is good. It is brilliant, I say, very, very convenient. The only claim that I have is that these screws should probably have some dotted gaps every 19 degrees. Now, speaking of the size and the size comparison between the K1 and K2, let me show you the difference and explain you why it is obvious and why it is not such a big problem. You see, this is a small filter system of 77 millimeters. You see, this is really quite a lot bigger than the previous one, but that is obvious. This is just the 77 millimeters and nothing else. And this can range from 67 to 82. And obviously the filter itself, the filters, the magnetic ones, are much bigger than any of the stepping rings. So whatever lens you use, it is sufficient not to give you any vignetting. And the base filter inside of it actually is bigger than the base filter in my previous system, and that is obvious because that one was 77 millimeters and this one is probably 82, and any that is smaller than that, of course, will fit it as well. So it must be bigger, and it must be heavier due to the new filter system. And first I was thinking if my old VND base in the K1 system would fit my new system here, but obviously it won't because it has the biggest of 82 and this is just 77. But if you previously had the, say, 82 filter system of K1 model, then probably your base VND and base mist VND, which was in that package, would fit the new one and you could use it there. And so what's interesting, in this K2 package, the base of the VND base is just only one filter, while previously it was VND base and mist base. The 2 base filters on top of which you got your regular filters. And here's just one VND base, and on top of it you have your mist filters, gold streaks, and so on and so on. So when previously you had the regular filters but different bases, now you have one base for all and then different filters just to get the same effects. And I even wonder what happens if I, say, compare the mist base and the mist filter on top of it, so 2 mist filters altogether, and here's what I got. These are from different systems, so I couldn't pull them together just like it should, but there's a test just having one filter on top of each other. That's funny. And then again, I was asked many times after the previous review, could you stack any more filters on top of the basic one? So one magnetic filter over another. Yes, you absolutely can. They magnet one on top of each, and so I'll tell you and I'll show you how it looks like. So here's one filter and you magnet it on top of the other. Yes, it magnets and it holds and it does not fall off, but it is not so secure. It does not have, so to say, railings to keep it in place. It's just the magnetism. And it, of course, rotates, but it does not have hard stops. because the original base of it, you know, it magnets much more toughly and it has hard stops. So yes, you can magnet any kind of filters on top of one another, but it's not secure and it's not doesn't have hard stops. And of course, it's gonna magnet just one way. If you turn it around, it will not magnet, you know, because the polarity is different. So there's no way to do whatever you want, but somehow, yes, you can stack one on top of another. What should be really noted about this filter system is that you should forget about using your regular lens hoods. They could be used with the previous iteration, with the K1, but it also had some disadvantages. It was hard to use. It could be tricky to use regular lens hoods with the K1, but it was somehow possible, and I showed you that in the previous review. But here you will not be able to use your lens hood because this is a big system on top of the lens and there's no way you get your hood over it. So flaring and glaring may occur a lot without a lens hood if you have direct sunlight or a light from the side of the lens. But first, that might be right the way you want or you need in your video, especially with the filters like gold streaks or mist filters. It can be a really special cinematic effect, so maybe there is no need in this lens hood. And in photography, the stills photography, it's often considered a flaw, a disadvantage in photo to have, you know, streaks, flares, glares and stuff. But in cinema, it may be even an artistic advantage. And second, of course, if you use these filters for serious production, and it is quite compact system, you're gonna be using, and you want to use, the real cinema matte boxes. So the huge camera rigs with which such filter systems are actually used, although you can use it on a small camera as well, it doesn't matter. But of course, if you're serious about your shooting, you would use matte boxes, which could not only give you the same opportunities as the regular lens hoods, but really much more capabilities. So no lens hoods with this filter system, but matte boxes are all over the place, you know, use them. And now when we're done with the sizes, with the contents, with comparing with the K1 and stuff, let's now go strictly to the picture quality. And as I've told you, we're not going to be inspecting the regular ND and CPL filters. I've tested them. They worked perfectly fine and absolutely the same as previously. Just go watch my previous review and you'll see that these are fantastic and very high quality VND and CPL filters. But now we're going to concentrate on these three, the Cinemorphic Gold Streak, the Gradient ND filter and the Diffusion Snow Mist 1/8. And we start with the easiest, the simplest one, which is the Gradient Neutral Density filter. And you can easily understand what it is. You've probably worn once in a lifetime your glasses or sunglasses, you know, polarized or gradient sunglasses. It's when the top of the piece is darker than the lower part, and there is a gradient between the darker part and the lower, brighter part. The lower part is actually not bright, it's just like a transparent, like it naturally is. And in this example, I'm showing you on the video, it is shot on my 6D Mark II with the 24-105 L lens at 24mm right out of my window in the daylight, but close to late afternoon. So we are using regular VND here, and there's about 3.5 to 4 full stops of light reduction here, with the regular VND base and the 1 to 5 stops ND on top of it. So that's a perfectly exposed picture according to the camera metering. And so you see obviously the upper part, the sky is a little bit brighter and the downside is the darker, and you cannot do much to it. It's either you blow out the sky and have details at the bottom or vice versa. The bottom is going to be too dark with the sky properly exposed, and that's where the gradient filter comes into play. You slide it in and you start gradually sliding it deeper and deeper until the sky gets a little bit darker exposure, but the bottom stays the same and detailed. And thus you can actually bump up your exposure just a little bit to have more details in shadows at the bottom, but still retain details in the sky due to the upper part of the filter darkening the image. And so you see how I'm sliding in all the way down to the hard stop to have the full gradient, and it's gonna deliver -3 stops of exposure in the sky. And that's perfectly fine, and you cannot, maybe don't see it in full scale while I'm sliding it in and back out. But now when I'm showing you the pictures, actually the photographs that I've made with the filter and without the filter, and see side by side, and you clearly see that the exposure with the gradient filter is actually much more even, and it looks like more like HDR picture because there are more details in shadows at the bottom and more highlights saved in the sky. So it creates kind of like a little bit more of a dynamic range, and it saves the HDR capabilities. So that's what the gradient filter for, and it works perfectly fine. It's the biggest of two, but it works, and it's there if you need it. Well, the GND filter is mostly used in daylight. Well, when there is a bright sky, well, a lot of clouds, and if you want the clouds to have more details, if you want to see the shape of clouds and at the same time see the details in shadows on the ground, that's where your gradient filter comes in handy. But I believe it's not much use of it in the darker situations, or, you know, inside of the rooms and places, indoors, I mean. Probably not much use of it, but it's a very, very beautiful and very useful filter for landscapes, obviously. And now the two other filters are quite vice versa. I mean the mist, the diffusion snow mist, and the Cinemorphic gold streak. They can be useful in the daylight, but they're mostly useful in the nighttime with the bright, pointy light. And now I'm showing you, we'll start with the gold streak one. That's a very interesting filter, and obviously it comes after the anamorphic lenses, which create the linear, you know, horizontal glares and streaks in the frame where there are bright, pointy lights, you know, in the frame. So you obviously see how it works. I show you the videos and photos, and here I went out with a model in the night looking for bright lights, and I've taken 3 lenses with me, one of which is ultra wide angle 16 to 35 millimeters f2.8. It's very wide just for artistic purposes to have ultra wide angle, and it's quite fast with f2.8 aperture, and it is 77 millimeters filter thread, so it's almost the biggest of the bunch. And I don't have and still haven't any filters of 82 millimeters filter thread, so I grabbed the biggest I got, 16 to 35 f2.8 with 77 millimeters. And here are examples of video and portraiture. Of course, it's not a lens for a portrait in any way, it's just funny stuff, but you see the light streaks at any angle, and even zooming in and out in the video. So this ultra wide angle zoom lens, you see what gold streaks are. These are very nice light streaks in the frame. The next lens I used is the 72, a little bit smaller, 72 millimeter lens thread, and it's a portrait lens. It's 85 millimeters. f1.4 Samyang lens. It's obviously the strict portrait lens. It's very beginning of telephoto range, and it's very fast aperture of 1.4, gives a beautiful blown out backgrounds, you know, the blur, the bokeh you see, and the light streaks as well with the biggest smudged points of lights. And you see the examples of photos and videos with this lens. And then the last one I used is the wide angle but still fast lens. It's the EF non-L lens, EF35 f2 IS USM lens. It's reasonably wide angle, and it's a reasonably fast aperture of f2, and it has image stabilization, so it's good for everything, for photos, for videos, even for portraits. And you see with the fast aperture how it works with the photos and videos. And it as well has the smallest diameter of these three. It's 67 millimeters. And so I've tested these gold streak filter with this free, not only to get different, perspective and different angle of view and different aperture, but also because they are all three with different filter sizes, and I could easily just, with a blink of an eye, just swap the filter system from one lens to another. I just screwed the three stepping rings on the three lenses, so they all have their own stepping rings, 67, 72 and 77, and just with the push of these buttons on this filter system, I could easily switch from one lens to another, very fast and very convenient. And so now you get an idea how the gold streak filter works, and of course it is beautiful. But there are 2 points I should say about. Is that first, it's gold and no other color. So, and I myself, I would rather prefer silver, but I don't know why they do gold. Maybe they will have different colors, maybe silver or some else. But I would personally prefer silver streaks, but that's just a matter of personal taste. And the other is, sometimes it's really too much. You've already seen it in this video. It sometimes can be really too much when there are a lot of pointy lights. There are so many of these streaks that it looks ridiculous, When there is a couple of lights, it's perfectly beautiful, looking like a cinema shot with anamorphic lenses, yes. But when there's tons of lights, it's just so ridiculous. And just as well, see here, as I was telling you, that you can rotate these filters if you don't keep them screwed on with the screws, but just, clamped on with the push of a button. You can rotate, and you can rotate the streaks as well. So you can have them either horizontally or vertically or any other angle. You can even shoot video with the rotating streaks. Yes, that's maybe a nice artistic effect, but I'm not sure you want it on a regular basis. So it's a very beautiful picture with these streaks. But be careful not to get many pointy lights in your frame, because it's gonna just look laughable or ridiculous, funny, and just don't overdo it. Sometimes these streaks can be too much, but overall this is a very nice, beautiful cinemorphic filter. And last but not least in any way, the K2 Diffusion Snow Mist 1/8. It's basically the same mist VND which I had previously with the mist base on the K1 system here. To me it looked pretty much the same, but maybe a little bit stronger, but maybe. You need to compare it, side by side, which I didn't. And it's a beautiful filter. I've showed you and told you about that in my previous review, but here I'll repeat briefly. It smudges the bright point lights a little bit. It creates a halo, so a bright, bright blurred area around the very bright pointy lights. That is its first effect, that it just makes the hard light softer, and it can soften not only the artificial lights but the sunlight as well. And I showed you the example in my previous review, shooting the vlog in the daylight with the sun being a little bit blurred and softened. And it not only softens the pointy lights, but also all the highlights. It makes them a little bit softer with the highlights. And what's the nice advantage of it? That it softens a little bit of the skin in the portraiture, and I show you the examples right here. By the way, I did it all with absolutely the same three lenses, so while I'm telling you this, you see the examples on the screen of pictures, still pictures and videos with the same three lenses that I told you about, but this time with the Diffusion Snow Mist. And it really diffuses the light, and it makes the skin a little bit softer. It changes the color of the picture very, very slightly to the warm side. but it really diffuses the bright light, so they look really beautiful, dreamy, and sometimes even cinematic as well. So if you want a little bit softer picture, not losing the sharpness of the main subject, but getting a little bit softer background or foreground, and especially the bright lights, the harsh lights, not to distract you from the main subject. That's where the diffusion comes into play. And that's a really beautiful picture. And I must say, with the K1, previously, I actually going out and shooting vlogs in the bright daylight. I really preferred the mist filter, just even for daylight vlogging. I preferred the mist plus VND, and it created the more gradual highlights, the softer highlights and softer skin. And so that's a really beautiful filter. You see how it works, and I really liked it, no two ways about it. So all the filters that are here present with this package, they all work really well. And you see how it works with and without it. So all in all, these all filters are beautiful, and the whole system is very convenient with these stepping rings. Now with these filters, be aware that having the three of them stacked in one system here, one after another, they can sometimes reflect one into another and just show you a little bit of reflected dots in the screen. I show you in the picture here on the screen. They sometimes can reflect into each other. It can happen to any filters, and it often happens inside the lenses themselves. That's what's called flare, with the direct light inside the lens. But these filters can reflect into each other and create some, you know, dots that you could possibly not wish for, but be prepared that it can sometimes happen, and maybe try to find a way to fight this. And with the gold streak filters, sometimes, especially with the very blurred background, in these bokeh balls, you can see the grid of these filter streaks themselves. So the actual physical grid that is on the filter, sometimes you can see it in the filter, in the frame, I mean in the picture. Not only the beautiful golden streaks, but these grid lines of the filter itself. I show you this on the screen, so be aware that this can happen as well. It's not a big problem, you don't see it much or often, but sometimes it pops out. Not much to say in the way of conclusion. It is really affordable filter systems, both K1 and K2, if you consider its quality, the build quality, the picture quality against its price. It's really, really affordable and absolutely fantastic quality product. And it is acceptably compact. Of course, the new one, the K1, is significantly bigger than the K1, but it's in no way it is huge. It is, yes, bulkier than K1, but it is perfectly fine, even for running and gunning. But of course, if you're shooting yourself like I do, you could use K1, but if you have a company, assistant and camera operator, just without a doubt go with K2. It presents many more capabilities than K1, and it is also very versatile, much more versatile than the previous one, with the stepping rings, with the drop-in filters. It's more versatile, and it is future-proof, because you see, you will not have to buy additional stepping rings or additional filter system. You already have this. But if you buy these additional big filters, which the company, the FREEWELL company, may produce in large quantities and a lot of new types, I'm sure of that they will. You can easily buy the new filters and, you know, stack them here or slide them in the slot for drop-in filters. So this is a future-proof system, definitely. You buy the system, and then I'm sure you'll have a ton of new filters to buy for this system in the future. So you can expand this system and have a lot of new capabilities later. But as for me personally, I prefer to stay with the K1, because just as a simple vlogger, I basically use the lenses with the 77mm, like this 16 to 35 that I mentioned above, and I use it for vlogging and for video work. So for me, it's easier just to screw on the small filter and just go and shoot. But as I've told you, if you want more capabilities and future-proof, then go with the K2. It's no way to lose here. The K2 is more technically advanced, it's more professional, and it is more capable, and that's what I wanted to say. Beautiful product. Thanks again to FREEWELL Company for presenting me this for review. Paul Kretz was here. Subscribe to my channel. Give me some likes down below, and please write down some comments if you use the K1 or if you have a luck to get your hands on K2. Just share your thoughts on these filters, what's convenient, what's not, what's useful for you, and let's talk about it down in the comment section. Now, thanks for watching again. I'll see you later. Bye bye.